And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host Dan, aka smAsho. We're starting things out looking at the view from Stereo A's coronagraph to see a coronal mass ejection in the Earth-facing vicinity. Now, if you're wondering where Stereo A is located out here at Lagrange point 5. Yes, right there. So you're viewing the sun at this sort of an angle, which means coronal mass ejections that are headed to the right of the screen are Earth-facing, and we do look. It does look like there's an Earth-facing component, although it's quite diffuse. It's not done ejecting yet, and it's also pretty slow, so not too exciting there. Again, Stereo A located at Lagrange point 5. Here's the view from the Discover located at Lagrange point 1, and here's what the coronal mass ejection looks like from that. By the way, we also have a comet that we've discovered here, right there. You can see it moving past, and it looks like it breaks up on its way, getting closer to the sun there as it vanishes. So once again, a small comet discovered here. I didn't see anybody else report on it, so congratulations to us. And here's the view from the LASCO C2. That was the LASCO C3. And we do see some ejecta on both sides of the coronagraph here, an indication that it's got some Earth-facing plasma associated with it. Again, a little bit on the diffuse side, not fully done ejecting yet, and a slow coronal mass ejection. We'll be keeping an eye on this throughout the day. By the way, if you're wondering about the SDO, this is where the SDO is located. It flies this figure-8 path between Texas and the equator, and that's how it's able to maintain constant view of the sun. Here's a view from the SDO's magnetogram, and that sunspot we reported on yesterday, I believe it did not remain umbral for long enough to be named. We'll take a look by the end of the video to determine if it is currently a sunspot. It doesn't look like it now. Another activity region forming up here. And yeah, so 0 sunspots. And there's the animation of the colorized magnetogram. Here's the 131 angstroms view. There are the time and date stamps. That's 1 day of activity there. And here's 193 angstroms. Great view of the north coronal hole. Again, this is also 1 day of data. Some minor crown prominences up there. You can see a little bit of bright flashes associated with the North Pole. Here's the southern region. And if you're wondering why we're not doing HelioViewer movies, it's because HelioViewer's been down. I don't know if they didn't pay their internet tab or what the deal is, but HelioViewer down for everyone the past 2 days. 10.7 centimeter radio flux still at 69. There's the 3.5-year graph of the radio flux. The KP index, a global measurement of geomagnetism, at 3. And we're in a coronal hole wind stream right now, so that's why the KP index is at 3. We don't see any solar flaring, and we don't see any big proton strikes on the magnetosphere. Here's the real-time solar wind, and you can see the density drop down, and then the velocity came up right after that, an indication of a coronal hole wind stream. Not a very high speed wind stream. It's only 398 kilometers a second right now. Solar wind density 7.44 protons per cubic centimeter. The BT-BZ is looking a little on the strong side here, as we see the BT at 6 and the BZ at -3. South pole, south solar polar field polarity there associated with the total field. Total field is the BT. Here's 4 hours of the magnetosphere movie. And not a lot to say about that data. I expected to see a little more pressure on the sun side, which would be to your left. Let's see if it kicks up at the end a little bit. Main pressure here is in the magnetotail region, as you can see. Again, the sun would be off to your left from this view for you new viewers. Next, looking a little closer to home at ground magnetic perturbations, and we see some significant magnetism here. You know, we don't always show the polar view, but we're showing it today. As we're living through a polar excursion. Here's the global view, and we see significant magnetism looking like it's spilling out of the South Polar region. Keep in mind the South Pole has left the Antarctic continent and it's in the southern Indian Ocean someplace. And we've got two North Poles, one over northern Siberia, one over northern Canada during this polar excursion. That was 4 hours of data. Look out Louisiana. If you're told to evacuate, please do, as that storm is stagnating. They're still at 70,000 power outages, still only 11,000 out in California. Keep in mind, not everybody is tracked on this data. That's poweroutage.us, by the way. And there you can see these sawtooth readings on the GOES magnetometer. And we're actually in the South Pole current sheet here for a moment. Here's a view of it. And this shows you the current sheet polarity. Green would be the North Pole, red would be the South Pole. Keep in mind the data is 1 hour and 50 minutes old, and the magnetic environment can suddenly change with essentially zero warning. So we are solidly in the South Pole current sheet. We could snap into the North Pole current sheet at any moment. And this is showing potential field force lines based on ground-based magnetometers as well as stereo A and stereo B's magnetometers. Next, the line of sight field plot. And not a lot of effects on the B field there, shown in blue. No sunspots, not a lot of activity. Here's the coronal hole potential field force line plot. And this shows you coronal hole field force lines in purple, closed field force lines in pink, and open potential field force lines in black. Not too exciting there. And welcome to another Smash Lights segment, where we talk about anything. We might talk like a maniac, or we might talk like a rational person. Who knows? I may look into a crystal ball, or I may, who knows what I'll do. Let's talk about what's trending on Twitter. Guess what's trending on Twitter, folks? Hashtag pedo Biden. Yeah, pedo Biden. It's true. Uncle Joe gives it 5 sniffs. No malarkey, folks. No malarkey. If you don't follow us on Twitter, you may not see the tweets. And there are quite a lot of them. Some people on Twitter are not aware that plants exhale carbon dioxide when they perform cellular respiration, which is what they do with the glucose that they make during photosynthesis. By the way, we are streaming live to Twitch. Thanks to our followers over there. Please consider checking us out on Twitch. It's where we do most of our daily live streaming because the platform is so good. You can link to all of our social media at smashomash.org. It'll redirect you to smashomash.com. There's the smAsho VoIP line, our email address, Patreon, PayPal, Subscribestar, Locals, Facebook, etc. Gab and Minds. You can also link to our affiliate there and so on. Check that out. Please take a moment to press like and subscribe on YouTube if you're viewing the content there. We like to watch our live premiere events with our audience on the daily, so that they can ask questions and get enraged at the responses. Just kidding, folks. I don't really get enraged at the responses. So yeah, take a moment. Press like and subscribe on YouTube. We'll wait. Don't worry, we'll be here when you get back. Tell your friends, foes, science noobs, and science pros also. We're also on BitChute, and there is exclusive content over there, as well as yesterday's Scrying with Smash, Venus, Mars, Nibiru, Stereo B annihilation, and the spine matrix. Next thing we're going to talk about is the COVID. Are you scared and spooked? I'm not. I started covering it on January 23rd, and check it out. It's It's my new hairdo. It's my COVID rotating fro. It's my co-fro. It's a co-fro. And I'm just gonna leave you there, COVID, because you look so good. Let's talk about Dr. Atlas, Dr. Scott Atlas. He's been censored by YouTube. Guess what? It turns out that the lockdowns have cost twice as many lives as they've saved. Yeah. Now, this interview here was censored by YouTube. If you want to watch it, check it out at the American Institute for Economic Research. It's also linked at zerohedge.com, and it's still available on library. Here's a clip.
If you feel that it's risky to go into a restaurant, then don't go.
Talking some logic and some real facts here. It's basically the replacement for all intents and purposes for Dr. Fauci, Dr. Scott Atlas. Listen to what he says. This is a 50-minute interview, and it's fantastic. It'll make you feel better, like perhaps the world's not ending. Let's talk about the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment reads, "The right of the people to be secured in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the things or persons to be seized." Have you been noticing some problems with the Fourth Amendment? Well, I've been noticing some problems with the Democratic Party, and the problem is that they view the Constitution as
obstacle,
not as guidance on which to make laws. So they keep doing unconstitutional things, and apparently they view you as an
obstacle
as well to their political power, graft, waste, fraud, and abuse. No malarkey there. Yowzers. Please leave a comment if you like my COVID hairdo. It's my rotating co-fro. I think it looks delightful. There is only one problem associated with it, and the problem is that it's made in China. Now, what's not made in China is smAsho.com/forum. We're nearly at 1,500 members now, almost as many as we have YouTube subscribers, which is just amazing. It must just be a coincidence. I'm sure we're totally not shadow banned by Google and Facebook or anything. Let's talk about what I was talking about on April 20th. Well, here's what I posted. Scenes of protests across the country demanding states reopen the economy amid the coronavirus panic. There's Minnesota. Here's Austin, Texas. Raleigh, North Carolina. Concord, New Hampshire. Lansing, Michigan. Apparently they don't like Gretchen Whitmer. Annapolis, Maryland. Concord, New Hampshire, etc., etc. People were sick of lockdowns by April 20th, and now they're considering much, much harsher measures. Because, well, we're sick of wearing masks, we're sick of lockdowns, because they're both utterly, utterly ineffective. How deadly is COVID-19? Well, if you want to read all about it, head to smAsho.com/forum. The Free For All forum has a 31-page section about coronavirus, starting a timeline, which reaches almost updated every single day from January 23rd all the way into late July, when we stop covering it. And welcome to another cosmology segment where I talk about cosmology, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave. See how agreeable COVID is nowadays? Geez, are you scared and spooked? Today at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, NASA will be doing a special about the sun's next cycle. I invite you to tune in. Perhaps I'll even do a live stream during it. I don't know, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll do a recorded video about it. In any case, it'll be interesting to see what NASA says about the next solar cycle, whether they agree with Zarkova or not, whether they care about proxy data or not, whether they have any idea about the magnetic fields or not. Cosmology is a massive rabbit hole, and I'm a fan of rabbit holes because I can handle the variables. One major rabbit hole is heliophysics, obviously, but also the rest of cosmology, as it's not well understood, and a lot of assumptions, piled upon assumptions, based on bad science, have been driving people's ideas about silly things like dark matter and how the Earth's geomagnetic fields are generated. Now, I'm not going to talk about that today, But let's talk about possible life on Venus. Yes, why are there phosphenes in the Venus atmosphere? It doesn't make any sense in terms of normal, understood planetary molecular structures. It doesn't make any sense. It's only likely that life would have put phosphine in the atmosphere because things like volcanoes and understood planetary physics don't, or I should say planetary chemistry, don't really produce phosphenes in the amounts detected on Venus. Now let's talk about Venus for a quick second. Now, Venus has about the same day as it has a year. So let's get rid of this animation and bring up just a regular old image of Venus. What that does, and by the way, this is not some kind of a colossal structure that is missing data, because in order to get these photos, this satellite had to take a slice and take another slice and take another slice and tie all the data together to get this high-res image. The point is, Venus has a dark side and a light side, which means right on this area, you've got this day-night terminator, and it takes almost a full year for one day to elapse on Venus. What does that mean? That means that the dark side is very cold, and the light side is hot enough to melt lead, which means you've got this zone where you probably have room temperature all the time rotating around the planet. Now again, a year and a day take about the same amount of time on Venus, and so perhaps there's great potential for doing things like, oh, I don't know, farming satellites? Who knows? Perhaps farming on the surface of the planet. There's lots of carbon dioxide there. Now, I don't personally want to go to Venus, but the possibility of life being on the planet up in the atmosphere, and I would imagine that it would probably be associated with that day-night terminator that, again, takes like half of an Earth year. Venus's periodicity. Let's look up Venus's periodicity, as I don't memorize things like that. So now Venus takes 224 Earth days. And I probably have the data that I want there, but I'm just going to move on because you understand the point, most likely, that there is a sweet spot between that day and night portion of the planet that is an enduring sweet spot. There's probably also extreme atmospheric turbulence in that region. Life on Venus looking more likely than not with all that phosphine. Let's talk about the most, another section of smAshomash.com/forum. We've got Cygnus A, the most significant radio source, second to only the Sun. We've got a list of the closest stars, and today's featured star is Proxima Centauri. And when I zoom in on it on Sinbad, it's actually so dim that it's not even able to be seen. Thanks for leaving comments. Bestoic, how are you feeling? Bestoic says the Mayan said Earth year was around 220, I think, or something like that. He'll look it up. Okay, well, we thank you. Anyway, there's the zoom into Proxima Centauri. Proxima Centauri, the closest star in the known universe, in the Milky Way galaxy, obviously, located at 4.244 light years. It's a flare star, and it's part of a trinary system. I won't talk about it more, but if you want to read about it, there's an article on Wikipedia. Here's a close-up. That's also from the Wikipedia article. The closest star, Proxima Centauri, the featured star of today's cosmology segment. Now, the true source of funding for these videos indeed comes from our patrons. We're also on Subscribestar, and there are other links to visit below the video to help support us as we are tanking over here and we make almost nothing to make these videos. Thanks to our patrons, again, the true source of funding. Please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/smAshomash. And we greatly appreciate your support, patrons. Every month we update the credits crawl here and look for us to mess around with this, doing various different things, putting it over the top as an overlay and doing all sorts of different stuff with our credit crawl. Thanks again to our patrons, the true source of funding for the content, patreon.com/smashamash. There are perks, and there are 9 different tiers. And here ends another episode of the Smash Lights, where we talk about whatever we want, and then I vanish and go back to talking about space and space stuff. Thanks again for commenting, Be Stoic. Be Stoic feels no symptoms to the COVID except for a lack of taste and smell. And that sounds like not too much fun. I'm not sure what you mean by did the Amazon thing help? Let's move on to more stuff. The electron flux has cratered again, and we've gone completely away from electron storm conditions. No surprise there, as we're seeing a coronal hole wind stream. Charging hazards are minor and are over places like Northern South America and Central America and Mexico. NOAA is forecasting a slight increase in the relativistic electron flux. Here's the GOES electron flux, which includes greater than or equal to 2 mega electron volts, and we see that dip, and we expect that to continue throughout the incoming coronal hole wind stream. When we see the coronal hole wind stream drop off, the electron flux might come back, but not before that. Here is the total electron content of the entire air column, looking at the thermosphere all the way down to the ground. This will show you where GPS errors would be located. Typically near the equator at noon. We don't really see big anomalies here. Some minor anomalies over Africa at nighttime, and about what you'd expect with a relatively low level of electron flux. Here is the ionosphere, just one slice of the atmosphere, as opposed to what we just saw, which was the entire air column. And ionosphere is looking a little discharged on the sun side there during parts of this 24-hour animation. And we used to show only 6 hours of this. We've upgraded this to 24 hours to show you things like what happens at the South Atlantic anomaly. And you can see super good evidence of that. You know, it's located right about here. And it has actually split. There's actually a second South Atlantic anomaly. It's kind of like shaped like a blob now. It looks almost like there's one moving towards South Africa. Here's the latest image, that one coming in at 8:15 Universal Time. Looking pretty normal there, nothing to write home about. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. There's where things will be in a week. And in about a month, you're going to see Venus and Mars are just going to switch places, folks. Didn't you know? Yeah, they're just going to switch places. No big deal. It might, it might have some effects on Earth. And if you didn't watch yesterday's Scrying with Smash video, well, check out our playlists at youtube.com/smashamash/playlists. Here's a clip.
Be named. What is this? It would be named Planetary Body 334762-4462+5.
That's what they're going to name Nibiru when it comes out from behind the sun at Lagrange point 3. If you didn't watch yesterday's Scrying with Smash episode V1.5, you better check it out, or you may not know about all these important forecasts that the crystal ball has provided. And I always like to know what's going on above my head, so I like to use in-the-sky.org and make myself charts of the nighttime sky. It's 4:21. Do you know where your planets and stars are located? If you're up before dawn, you may see a great moon and Venus on the ecliptic, as well as Mars up near the apex of your ecliptic. You can even draw in the ecliptic if you want to. I face my star charts to the south because, well, I'm currently facing to the south. We did see 2 6+ magnitude earthquakes. This one here is quite interesting on the Kamchatka Peninsula, and there's a location of it. What's the most important feature? Well, check this out. The depth is 329.7 kilometers. Let's look at the rest of the quakes over the past 24. And there's a deep quake south of it, not quite 100 kilometers. Here's a deep quake at the Band AC, north of Australia. It's a 4.6 magnitude at 142 kilometers depth. Here's a nearly 100 kilometer depth quake at Japan. Guatemala sees a deep quake at a 4.6 magnitude at 135 kilometers. A deep quake at Alaska. It's only a 3.0 magnitude, but 125 kilometers depth. So quite a few deep quakes there. And and then a lull in deep quakes, followed by a 4.3 in western South America there, in Argentina. 4.3 magnitude at 242 kilometers. Pretty deep quake there. Here's another deep quake at Alaska, 175 kilometer depth and a 2.5 magnitude. Here's the 6.4, the largest of the past 24. Again, 329 kilometers depth. And followed only about a half hour later by a 6.1 at Fiji. And that one near the surface at 10 kilometers depth. So a little uptick in deep quakes, and 2 6 magnitude quakes taking place in a very short period of time, only a half hour between them, at Kamchatka and then at Fiji, which, by the way, Fiji is the deep quake capital of the world. Let's look at volcanoes next. What's erupting? Well, Sakurajima's back on the list, producing a 7,000-foot ash plume. Semaru back on the list as it explodes. Flight level 140, 14,000 feet. We don't see any more volcanic ash observed in satellite at Popocatépetl. Please do not attempt to pole vault or tightrope the caldera. Sangay exploding, flight level 220. Revenador exploding, flight level 150. And Sabancaya exploding, 23,000-foot ash plume coming from that volcano. Please do not attempt to do a handspring or a triple Lindy over the caldera. Here are your warnings on weather.gov. And the Gulf Coast is having a bad hurricane season. As you can clearly see there, I don't know what the orange is, but they've got all kinds of tropical storm and hurricane and storm surge warnings in those areas. Please heed your warnings. Before we move into more in-depth U.S. data, shout out to our African and European viewers. There are your water vapor maps. Water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania. Shout out to our viewers from those locations. And here's the Tropical Tidbits total precip forecast. You can see forecasting like 20 inches of rain there, maybe 2 feet of rain in southern Mississippi and Alabama. So the storm track has moved a little bit to the east. It all has to do with that dry air that we showed you yesterday. And there's the animation of that. It's going to eventually move out to sea off the coast of Virginia by Friday midday. That's the GFS forecast according to tropicaltidbits.com. And let's look at pressure zones here. We'll animate this map. This is the GFS forecast courtesy of windy.com, who, by the way, has a lovely mobile app that I like to use regularly when I'm out in the field, which is regularly also. There's where we expect things to be at 12 noon tomorrow, that low fully making landfall by that point. Let's see where the lightning strikes are happening. There's some intense lightning storms there over the southern Mediterranean near Malta. One of the more interesting places in the world. Yes, Malta. It's a Catholic Church military duchy. Not a Pennsylvania duchy. Although I'm a Pennsylvania duchy. And last night we had pork and kraut, by the way, and it was fantastic. Abso-smurfly fantastic. Here's a U.S. Doppler radar map. Let's zoom in on the hurricane. And there's a good animation of that. You can see those heavy bands just about to make landfall there. And we have massive pressure gradients, and there could be some severe thunderstorms, tornadoes kicked off by that. It's a bad time. Here is the cloud layer situation. That system there has moved north of Bermuda, so let's look at this one. And it looks like a pretty weakly rotating system here. That's not going to stop it from dropping lots and lots and lots of rain. Here's the water vapor map. Let's zoom in on that same area to help our viewers located in these areas have some idea of what the storm track will be. When you look at the water vapor, folks, you get a better idea. And you can see that dry air right here. That's a huge blessing for New Orleans and all of Louisiana, really, as it's causing a bit of a buffer there, and it's not helping to strengthen the storm, put it that way. If If you want to have better ideas about whether a hurricane will get stronger or weaker, dry air and ocean temperatures are two of the things that I use, and I've had wild success forecasting hurricane tracks in the past, like last year and in 2018. Anyway, there's a situation for that, and let's just, I just want to see what's going on above my head for once, and I'm located in eastern Pennsylvania. For you new viewers don't know where I'm located right about there. I wanted a smaller dot, right about there, in the Lehigh Valley. And it looks like we've got some cold air, and indeed it was forecasted to go down into the 40s last night. I'm not sure what our low temperature was, but it's pretty chilly. As you can see, the jet stream is dipping down like this, and then heading back up toward Iceland. Here are the jet streams. What part of the planet? Oh, there we go. There's the Western world. And we really have a tripled up jet stream here. There's 1, 2, 3 significant jets, as well as some extreme bends here in the jet stream. It's meridional jet stream flow at the solar minimum finest. And it looks like you're getting some warm weather in Argentina. Here are the jets of the eastern world. And I think it's time for me to reappear. By the way, have you headed to smAsho.com/affiliate yet and picked up yourself a pulse oximeter? I like to use mine when I'm forecasting the future. And there are also all kinds of other... Oh wait, did I vanish? There we go, now I've reappeared. Have you picked up a pulse oximeter? Well, my pulse rate's only at 64. My blood oxygen's at 98%. Head to smAsho.com/affiliate. David Blaine uses a pulse oximeter. Why don't you? One of the most important measurements of your health is your blood oxygen and your pulse rate. Don't you know yours? smAsho.com/affiliate. Get yours via our Amazon links. And a bunch of other personal protective gear as well. I don't know how I zoomed in there. I didn't mean to. And by the way, thanks Smash Team for tuning in. Don't forget to share on your social media. Thanks for flying American Smashways. Please keep your head and arms inside the Smash plane at all times. We're going to show you a 48-hour SDO video in 304 angstroms. We're going to show you the colorized magnetogram to most likely show you 0 sunspots. Those are the places to keep an eye on. And when I say eye on, well, the pun is just intentional. It's so funny. And we don't see any ombre up there. I don't see any dark spots. I only see light spots, which make that a plage, not a sunspot. And let's look at 304 angstroms over the past 48 hours and call it a day, and allow me to vanish. Stop measuring my blood oxygen levels and bid thee farewell. In any case, thanks for tuning in once again, folks. Please visit the links to support the channel below the videos. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back. Some filaments down there dancing around in the south.